Wednesday, it's raining outside, and we're here to talk about cash pay practice development.
Does the rain and the cash pay correlate for you?
I don't know. It's just a rainy spring day. I'm both about it and not about it. But we're excited to be here. Hey, if you're joining us, give a comment, say hello. Happy to have you here. And we are digging into what does it take, or really how long does it take to develop a cash pay therapy practice? We'll dive into a couple of perspectives to make it relevant for you solos out there that are doing this for the first time, or for those group practices that are trying to develop an all cash pay load for the first time. I'd say 60-ish to 70% of the practices we work with inside of our private flagship program are probably cash pay at this juncture. And we see that ebb and flow a little bit just depending on area and size. So all to say, on a marketing, on a sales, on a systems and operations level, we are well versed in what it takes to scale a cash pay practice. And we've seen all sorts of data across the hundreds of practices just in the last 18 months we've worked with that have achieved a cash pay caseload. So we just wanted to share some insights on that. I think Attilio wanted to kind of start out with an interesting but pertinent point to start with is being cash pay even worth it? So before we say, hey, how long is it going to take? Is it even worth being cash pay?
Yeah, this is a super interesting question, and I think so many therapists are caught thinking of themselves as a therapist receiving income for their session rate.
Yeah.
And so the idea of cash pay is alluring because you get to command the price that you are worth, right? The price that you can command, whatever price that is, which sometimes is 20, 30, $100 an hour more than insurance. And so that's really alluring, right? Hey, why
Yeah.
wouldn't I move my insurance clientele over to cash
Double
pay?
my income. I could, whatever.
Yeah. And so in a lot of cases, I think that's like the go-to place. But I need to, I feel like it's worthwhile exploring the long-term version and long-term vision of your practice. Um, Cash pay, like going cash pay, it's not easy. It's not easy by any stretch of the imagination. Josh and I, we're going to dig up just a little bit more about like what it's all about in this call today. But guys, it's not like you just snap your fingers and all of a sudden your cash pay you doubled and you're like, I worked so hard to get to the double and it was worth it, right?
Yeah.
It's not quite like that.
No.
And
There's no one out there just like raising their hand saying, I'm someone who's gonna pay cash for therapy and like we can just like market perfectly to them. And we'll talk about that more in a second, but like that's not how this situation happens.
Yeah, there's not an instant plug-in to a cash pay network unless you have an insane referral partner that's built from somewhere else. So, all that to say is it's not easy to just go cash pay. Yes, cash pay has some benefits. It's easy. The payment processing's quick. You get your cash quick. You can get the rate that you want. But yeah, like what Josh was saying, it's not like people are jumping over themselves to pay cash for your practice, especially if you're just running an insurance practice, but you only accept cash. Um, so I think we need to like be aware of what cash rate is going to even
Yeah.
be worth it for you. If it's only like $20 or $30, guys, I think we need to look a little bit bigger too. You can run a really great group practice that does insurance, and you can make your extra cash off of the additional therapist or supervision hours or other things that a group practice provides
Right.
as just a larger group. And so kind of wrestling with some of those ideas. I think when it comes to making the actual decision, it's more complex.
Yeah, and I think of an analogy, and it breaks down a little bit, but almost someone who either rents or like owns a condo like I do, or I'm part of a larger association versus owning a home. Some ways, like the American dream is to own a nice, big, bright, beautiful home. And that's great, and that is awesome. But one, the market tells us that that's what we should want quite a lot, like in just terms of like the nationalism around the American dream and owning a home, right? And in some ways, that happens a little bit with like being a cash pay practice and all the upside and the benefits and the cash and other things that come with it. But when you own a home, You have to pay taxes on your home. You have to keep track of a ton of different things. You have to fix your home. You have to segment. You're in charge of the roof and the leaky toilets and mowing the lawn and a million other things. I own a condo right now, which for me is really like kind of right in the middle of owning a home versus renting. Renting is kind of like working for someone else's agency and just doing time for hours. For me, a condo, or for you, it'd be kind of like taking insurance, is a great place to be right now because I just pay a small fee and I don't have to worry about the lawn, the insurance, the macro plumbing, the roof, or anything else that's a part of my larger building. But I get a stable, concrete home with a mortgage and some of the saving benefits. You get to own your business and you get someone else's help organization, and there's a ton out there that make it even easier for you in a billing and credentialing front, the headways, the almas, the others of the world, that could make this a really successful process for you without any of the upkeep, right, which we're about to get into, that affects your time to get full as a cash pay practice. That it doesn't affect any of the upkeep that a cash pay practice sometimes takes.
Yeah. Maybe we can dig in on what are the complications of a
Yeah.
cash pay practice. So in a lot of ways, there's it's like these hidden costs, right? Hidden
Yep.
costs of owning a home is, well, now you have to take time. If the roof caves in, you got to deal with the roof cave in. If you got to do the lawn, you got to do all the maintenance. And so for cash pay practices, guys, there's a larger burden for marketing and sales. It's easy to work with 5 or 10 people, right? You can find 5 or 10 people that resonate with your voice. You can find 5 or 10 people that resonate with your care plan that are willing to pay cash pretty quickly. It's when you want to work with like 100 people and really fill that caseload that the complications start rising.
Yeah.
So finding something that not just a few people want, but like a good chunk of people want and will
Yeah.
engage with you for is really important.
And
Uh,
I'd say a big part of this is the consistency. We've even seen some cash pay counselors where you have to be really good at your marketing to not be on this roller coaster ride of an empty to full caseload. That is exhausting as a business owner. And we see it for group practices and solo practices, like both of them actually. And it does happen when you take insurance as well, for sure, because sometimes there's other business problems going on. But you have to be good enough at marketing. You have to have invested enough into your assets, your resources, whether that's skills or vendors or time or anything, to generate more referrals than what an insurance practice we would need. I saw someone in our one of our coaches, Brittany, posted yesterday. She was getting super cheap leads from her Facebook ad with a 90% conversion rate into service. And she takes insurance, and that would not be possible. She spends less on ads, and more people sign up who reach out to her, compared to some other practices that we've seen where like 20 people reach out to them in a week as a cash pay practice, and like 4 or 5 of them maybe convert. So it's possible, and they're converting, but the one has to get like 3 to 4 times the more amount of inquiries to get the same amount of clients. And that is the burden of a cash pay practice, and we just get to accept that, but we get the upsides at the end of it when we have it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Is like you have to be more open with telling people no, right? Like certain
Yeah.
times it's unethical to work with them in certain cases, or I think actually really you kind of brought up an interesting point too, kind of tangential with Brittany's here, is that um, oftentimes it's it goes beyond this marketing piece, right?
Yeah.
It's you actually have to be better to be a cash practice. You have to be better
Yeah.
than an insurance practice. Like the care plan has to be better. Someone has to be able to recognize what you do and how it benefits them at a degree. Not it's not 5-star service provider that an insurance practice could be. You have to be a 6-star service provider. You got to break the scale a little bit,
Yeah.
because quite frankly, if you're not, what's the point of working with you? There are some benefits to cash pay, right? There's
Yeah.
some benefits. You get to say what you want inside of the sessions, right? So it's not dictated by insurance. They're not practicing. You get the privacy. You don't have to have a diagnosis, right? There's some benefits, but it's a very small segment of people that are actively seeking those benefits to a degree that it's worth paying your price versus another price.
And all of the cash pay practices that we work with learn this fundamental lesson. And once they learn this, their whole business becomes a lot easier. Your marketing, your sales, your operations, your entire service set, the end goal is for an individual to want to work with you and your practice and your team as the main outcome. You are the destination. You are the service provider. They just happen to have to pay cash in order to make that happen. And that's how the rest of the world works too, right? Anything that isn't medically, that has an insurance related, that's how that works. And that's how everyone else has to compete for attention and compete for success in the business. That's how we have to compete for our own business, for you guys to sign up and enroll in our, and we have enough practices that we work with that happens. And so our encouragement to you is like, you need to build a business, and there's different ways to do this, but you need to build a business where they want to work with you and have clarity that they're going to get the result that they want with your team and with your specialists or you as an individual. And that is the number one driver. That has to be driven, whatever it is, in your marketing, in your sales process, and in the rest of the business fulfillment sessions and everything from there too. But we still haven't quite answered the question. But we've talked a lot about the problem.
I might add one extra component to the hidden cost behind a cash practice, and this component is just like the general business acumen.
Yeah.
In order to foster trust and authority with your community and with your ideal clients, there has to be a level of patience. There has to be a level of understanding that your practice is not for you, it's for your clients. And at the beginning, taking yourself out of the equation, taking your needs out of the equation, can greatly benefit your practice.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying sacrifice yourself. However, there certainly cash practices benefit from a season of sacrifice.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for, yeah.
I was going to say, one of the best ways that we've seen make cash pay successful is number one, don't try and do it cold turkey. If you've never built a business before, as a group or as a solo practice, right? In both of those segments, if you've never done that before in any way, shape, or form, or you don't have outside tons of business or marketing experience, building a cash pay group practice is kind of like playing the business mode on hard mode for this industry versus like whatever else. And just know that, eyes wide open. So it would be easier to initially fill out your caseload, taking insurance, and then transition after the business and some of the main business things that you have to get used to and deal with. A full caseload. You have to build and manage a business once you have a full caseload. And so that's a restriction in a positive way when you're fulfilling your service. Doing taxes, doing some level of billing, all of those things are things that come with running a business no matter what. And those are sometimes hard lessons to learn, whether you're cash or insurance. So why not learn those lessons when acquiring clients also isn't a really hard thing? And then once you kind of have some foundations, you have cash coming in, and this is the last piece. Now that you have cash coming in, and hopefully you have a little bit of success, a full caseload, you have the stability to start and go develop the assets, the branding, the marketing, and the sales language you need and other things to go after a cash pay caseload. You can afford a better website. You can afford to invest a couple $100 on ads. You can afford to pay someone. You can afford that coach, right? Program like ours or whatever to help you make this transition successfully. And that's the biggest thing. So if you have zero cash coming in and zero clients coming in, well, choosing the hardest client to go after maybe isn't your best bet, but you can work up to it and play on hard mode eventually with more help.
I'll piggyback just a little bit. This client is hard to get, right? This cash client is hard to get. However, when it's magnified how hard it is to get them when you don't know who it is that you serve. I think so many cash therapists in our program don't know the actual product that they have. So they've never taken their service, productized it. They don't know or have uncertainty on their niche, their ideal client, what they specialize in, what lights them on fire. So they don't even know how to craft a program in a way that people would resonate and want to pay cash for it.
Yeah.
And that really comes from repetition. That comes from working with more people. That comes from listening to a lot of people come through your practice. That comes from getting clients, having false starts, like failing, breaking a few eggs. That is so easy to do. It is so easy to collect information through insurance providers, through those almas, through those headways, through those, like, you can get full, do the repetitions, figure out what you like, what's going to work, what the care plan needs to be, what your offer can be, all while you're running through those platforms. And then before you know it, you have all the information you need, all the market research you need to make a really educated care plan,
Yeah.
cash pay care plan for your clients. And I think having the market research is so underrated because that's not how you're thinking about it when you're doing it.
Yeah.
But you only get that from doing repetitions.
Yeah.
We only got our program, our therapy flow today by working with lots of other therapists before, and we had to figure out what the exact plan was, the course plan that was actually going to even sell. And it doesn't come from trying to market and sell the whole time. It just
Yeah.
simply comes from listening to the market, working with people, figuring out what works well for you, and figuring out where you serve best.
100%. So, with that, we have seen someone get full within 4 to 8 weeks after they launch ads and assets and just say, "Hey, I'm going to start charging cash," and start to get inquiries flow. We've also seen it take 7 months or more, to hit a critical mass. We've also seen some counselors eventually hit it, but they worked at it for 3, 5, 10 plus years. So the sneaky answer to this question is that there isn't a perfect time frame. What is true is that we know the core skills that have to be developed in order to make this business successful. And the faster you acquire them and execute on them, and or the faster that you iterate on the feedback you get on the things that you're trying and make the changes needed to make this successful, the better it's going to go for you. There are a couple things that can speed this up. The therapists that get full the fastest have two things working for them. Either they have a massive network of people, community providers, other things, and you can move through that by networking massively, like if you don't have that already, and or they spend money or a lot of money on paid ads. And those are the two biggest things that I've seen produce a lot of speed. And by a lot of speed, I mean like a full cash pay caseload of 150, 250, in a span of 2 to 8 weeks or whatever.
I'll
That,
add
go ahead.
I'll add one more to that, and it's providing a service in a way that cannot be provided um, through insurance that's needed in your community.
Yeah.
So we've seen counselors that have to be referred from like courts, or counselors that have to be referred through by um, some like either legal system, some legal requirement, or some sort of other system where they have to seek a therapist. And in
Yep.
those cases, we've seen therapists essentially, um, because they are the only option, be able to charge cash, and they fill quick usually.
Yeah.
Uh, so like mandated things essentially that no one
Definitely.
else is filling in your community, and then having that list just massively to echo Josh, and that
Yeah.
that comes back to our staircase method.
Yep.
Josh, I don't know if you want to break it.
And I was just gonna say, with all of that, it starts with marketing, but then the other thing that we see a lot on a sales front is in a lot of counselors sometimes get this or don't get this, and we'll see if you're watching this how you react to this, but you have to sell your service. If you drive into a tire shop, you kind of vaguely been like, I think I need new tires. You're there to buy tires, and if a tire person is like, yeah, we sell tires. Like, I don't know, do you maybe kind of sort of want to buy tires? Like that's not going to really be a great experience for like trying to purchase from that.
Our
And
tires
so,
work sometimes if you put
yeah,
in the work, if you put it right.
and and, and but a lot of people just in general, this isn't a counselor specifically. So it's just sales in general. It's hard. It requires energy. It requires to be polished enough, but you're asking someone to trust you enough to spend hundreds and even potentially thousands of dollars with you on a monthly basis. There needs to be a level of service that takes place before, during, and after your sales call. The service that needs to take place in that call is revealing your value, is revealing why they should partner with you to work in a therapeutic process with you to see their outcome. And if you don't achieve showcasing and showing that value, and then at the end of that conversation, directly telling them if they like qualify and you can actually help them, that like, yes, we should work together, you're doing a disservice to them because they came to you as the expert to be told what they needed and what it would take to get the result that they want. And if you're not answering those things, you're not answering the questions that can help them say yes to your service. So there's a lot more, and we even have a lot more content, some of our other videos on that sales element, and the marketing to all of this. Like, please dig through some of our resources, or hop on a call with me to learn about kind of our full-fledged process. But at the end of it all, if you want to speed up your time frame to weeks or months to get a full cash pay caseload, you have to turn the spigot on for good, correct marketing that generates a lot more calls than you would need if you were an insurance practice. You probably need like 15 to 20 calls per clinician on your team on either a weekly or even monthly basis potentially until you get full. And then you need a sales process that's going to reveal your value so that directly says you should work with me if that needs to be the case.
Yeah, I think the last component too is absorb some information about the practice that you're running. What is required to run the practice that you want? What is required to be full? And can you do that? Are
Yeah.
you doing the activities that are going to get you there?
And and I just say, like, I don't own a house right now because I don't want to do the work needed to keep up a house. I bought a condo for a reason. And so at that, even if it means you make 10 to 15 or 20 to $30,000 less on an annual basis, optimizing yourself to be a fully cashed out insurance-based practice and go through all the tips, the tricks, and the trades, to be an insurance-based practice might be a better route to happiness and business success than being the cash pay practice. But all to say, it's one day I'm certain I will also buy a house and make that transition. And so being, more of our practices than not are cash pay at this point. And, go for that too, because it's certainly possible. We just have to know the game we're playing.